Ciao.
Podcast.
Our new podcast.
And we have a new podcast.
Very first podcast.
Influencers, celebrities, journalists, random friends of yours. Everyone has a podcast.
We are not. You see, I have actually, my daydream has always been 5 cents for every 3 minutes of a podcast. Sorry. Find a way to charge somebody, just for as long as they listen. And then people who duck out at a minute 28, then they only owe you like a nickel.
They get out free.
Exactly.
Yeah, they get out free.
Well,
cheap.
No, you got to pay. But
not free, cheap.
Exactly, cheap. Exactly. As they listen to the whole thing, maybe they owe me 25 cents. Adam Christianson is here with us, everybody. Adam Christianson is, of course, the host of the MacCast online at MacCast.com. Is that correct?
That would be the website, yeah.
MacCast.com. Of course, you can also follow him on Twitter at MacCast. And I would be really surprised if you don't know what MacCast is. But if you don't, tune in later this week, because we will make sure and give Adam a chance to say exactly what it is, exactly how long it's been going, exactly what you can expect. I'm dying, though, to have this conversation, especially with, did I mention, a podcast pioneer?
Oh, geez, here we go.
So Apple last week at the Spring Loaded event introduced a podcast subscription plan. Now, just about everybody thought what this was going to be was Apple was going to start producing their own podcasts, or maybe they would go out and get their own Joe Rogan. Maybe they get Joe Rogan Light. Maybe they get Andy Dick or Dave Foley or somebody else from News Radio. Who knows who it was going to be? But that Apple would find a way to go ahead and start getting people to pay for podcasts, but then they would fold it into Apple One. And so they would be on par with Spotify and Spotify, I guess. And of course, that's not what Apple did. Instead, Apple came out and said, right, we're going to give podcasters a way to charge people. And we started learning a little bit more about it. Some people were really excited. Some people are really terrified. Horrified, maybe better than terrified. I don't know. I mean, one of the first things that really seems to be annoying people is if you go with Apple's plan, the stuff that you're putting out as a premium is behind the paywall. Mm-hmm. I don't know how people thought you were going to pay for it if it wasn't behind a paywall, but that's a whole other thing. I'm curious, what are your initial thoughts on Apple's paid podcast plan?
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of how to answer this. Like, fine. Great. It's another option. Like, I'm totally indifferent about it in a lot of ways.
All right.
Like, you would think I would have a really strong opinion about it, but I really don't. I mean, it's nothing new. It's nothing different than has been available other than it's something from Apple. It was interesting. I was talking to Dave Hamilton about this a little bit, and he said, like, the best thing about it is frickin' finally Apple, after, iTunes 4.9, is doing something with podcasts.
Right.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Thank God. Like, they haven't done anything since then. So I guess it validates, podcasts in a little bit again. And it's, long enough. But I don't know. I mean, great. They're offering a thing. I think anytime when you give an audience an ability to support the content creators that are out there, like us, working very hard to entertain and produce content for people, I think that's great. Like, awesome. It's a great option. I'm not super thrilled about the 30%, but that's Apple's gig, and they do it across the board. And I've supported them in other areas where they release that. So that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the right split for like me. If you're asking, like, am I going to suddenly produce a subscription podcast on Apple? Probably not. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just Apple. So I don't know. I mean, I've tried the subscription thing. I had a membership show for a long time. Yeah. And the reality is like, I've generally found most people don't want to pay for their podcasts. They just don't, and I'd rather deliver content to a larger audience and have it be ad and community supported, which is what I have now. I mean, I have a kind of a mix of both because I have Patreon. Yeah. And it works for me. So like, I'm not going to poo-poo anything that's like another option for content creators to make money. Like, I think that's a good thing. And if Apple's your thing, that's great. I guess my only concern with Apple is I'm assuming it's just going to be on Apple. So if I did a subscription podcast on Apple, people are going to have to be on a platform that supports it. That's what's not clear to me.
Well, so an article that I was reading earlier in, I can't remember where, might have been Engadget, might have been somebody else, might have been the Next Web. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily, well, it's not exclusive to Apple. I don't believe you're going to be able to use the same RSS feed, but again, that's how you get paid.
Yeah, you're going to have to split things up, and I'm still going to have to do extra work to get it to someone outside of Apple. So I think that's a problem. Well,
I mean, problem or not, I mean, that's the question, really. I mean, first of all, I had somebody write to me, and I haven't responded to it publicly except for what I'm about to do right now. I had somebody write to me basically sounding almost threatening, saying, love you, love your shows, but don't even think about it because we will not follow you behind a paywall, hashtag food for thought. And my initial thought was actually hashtag, bullying or threatening or who do you think I am? Because, I mean, this show has been free for 15 years plus, right? So to go back to what you were saying about, is it, what did you say? Like, it's a problem that it's behind Apple's paywall?
Well, I'm saying I worry about it being exclusive to Apple, which limits the audience. So for me as a content creator, as a podcaster, that's a concern. But like, I don't think that's a concern in terms of like, if somebody wanted to support me on Apple. And granted, like I do a Mac podcast, so like it probably would be way less of a problem for me as a content creator, right, than maybe others.
I guess what I'm thinking is it's only a problem if you want more than what Apple is offering. Right.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know if I'm going to do anything. Here's what I'll say. It was probably 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, that I was on Mac Break Weekly. And I was talking about the fact I kind of blithely said Apple hasn't done a lot to support podcasters. And what I was talking about was the fact that we don't have an app store, that we don't have an iBook store. And now we do. I wish this had happened 10 years ago. I wish it had happened 5 years ago. I wish it had happened 3 years ago. I'm glad that it's happening now. And now that it's happening, I have no idea whether I will ever avail myself of it. But it does, it gives you an option. It gives me an option. Gives anybody who wants an option. And the thing is, you're not signing anything that says what you're offering is only going to be available on Apple. So if you put something free up on Apple, not free, I'm sorry. If you put something up on Apple and you charge for it and you feel like I'm not making as much money as I could, unless Spotify says your stuff has to be Spotify only, there is nothing to stop you from taking that thing that you've put up on Apple and putting it up on Spotify as well. And however people are going to pay for stuff through Spotify, they can pay you there. However they're going to pay for it on Apple, they can pay you there. If you do that for a couple of months and find that you're making 50 cents on Apple and $100 on Spotify or vice versa, you're free to pull it off of either one of those at any time. I mean, the whole thing, honestly, what makes me excited about it is just that it gives you options. It gives you a chance to play. Now, I'm also reminded of a conversation, that wonderful panel that you put together at Jillian's. For WWDC.
Macworld,
Yeah, and no, Macworld, right? Not WWDC, apologies. And
back when we had that.
Yeah. And I think Leo said something along the lines of nobody's gonna succeed or nobody's gonna make money or something like that. I think he kept saying it's gonna be so difficult to be successful. And my response to him was, we may have to change our definitions of success. Because there are some people, the article that I was reading that I was mentioning a minute ago, somebody who works for like a production house was saying, well, this is never going to work for the small creator. But a lot of small creators have been doing this with absolutely no financial return for years. And they, like you're talking about, they may be so small that they can't attract any kind of advertiser, but they may be big enough that they may have people who are like, God, you've been doing this for so long, I would absolutely pay $5 a month, or I'd pay, $1 a month or whatever amount. I mean, how it goes, how successful it is, depends really on where everybody is standing. Now, if everybody tries to charge $20 a month, no, it's not going to work for anybody. But if people find a level where, other people will support them, that could work, it seems to me.
I don't disagree. Again, I think it's great. I think it's great to have options.
Yeah.
And places. I worry a little bit about things. I worry about fragmentation. Like if I have to do separate things on Spotify and on Apple. So for me personally, I would just rather fall back on something like a Patreon or roll my own thing. But, I'm a web developer. I can figure that stuff out. There's a lot of people that can't. And that's
Right.
that's not an option for them. And so this is great for, it's great to have choices.
Yeah.
So I see absolutely nothing wrong with it. Apple taking their cut is Apple taking their cut. It's what they do with every other service that they offer. If I wanted, like you said, if I want to do a book, if I want to do an app, if I want to do anything on Apple's platform, that's the bargain. And you can take advantage of it or not. They're not making you, so like.
The one thing I
fine.
will say, and again, I cannot remember what the source of that article was. I wish I could, but they did say the one thing that's kind of surprising is they're doing 30% and 15% because they just did a deal for apps where unless you make $1 million, they're only going to charge you 15%. I don't know any podcaster that's making $1 million except for NPR, PRI. Basically, the people who are already set up. Wondery, I assume, is making more than $1 million a year.
Right.
Spotify. You, I don't think you're making $1 million a year. I know I'm not. I mean,
close.
Obviously, if I can hold on to somebody for a year, then that goes down to 15%. It's a little bit surprising that they started at 30 and then 15, although it's the same as the subscription thing. I gotta ask one question: is any part of you thinking of trying something completely different just to try it?
That's how I would do it. I mean, for sure. Like, of course, like you hear something like this and you're a podcaster, like your brain starts immediately like spinning the wheels. Like, what should I do? Will I actually like pull the trigger and do anything? Like, probably not, given the fact that I have a family, I have a full-time job, and I'm a podcaster. Like, where does that squeeze in?
Yeah.
It would have to really return revenue to like make it worth it. And historically, again, what I started out to say, in my experience, most people don't want to pay for podcasts flat out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Apple. If they make $1 gazillion, that's great for them. But I think it's going to be rough, to be honest.